Taking inventory on all you coordinators who are separated, how are you feeling, and what's kind of been the evolution of your week to this point?
Yeah, I feel fine. I feel I haven't had many symptoms, so that's been good. And just kind of isolate and quarantine myself, keep my family safe, and keep those around me safe.
What for you is the greatest challenge this week of trying to get a job done, given the limitations and the restrictions?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've kind of been through this rodeo a little bit over the last year, and so we're just operating kind of as normal as that way. We've got a pretty good operation in terms of Zoom and how to manage Zoom, and we've been game planning that way. Been meeting with the staff on our normal game plan schedules, and we've been meeting with the units similarly. So we've kind of operating as normal.
Next question, Herb Howard.
Coach, early in the game last week, you guys were able to do a lot of things to kind of take Devontae Adams kind of away, or at least limit him in the first half. Were there things they were doing differently? And if so, what were they doing differently in the second half to kind of free him up?
Yeah, I didn't see much of a difference. The thing that they did, which they did in the first half too, is they ran a lot of in cuts with him, and they did that in the first half too. At the end of the half, you saw a few in cuts that they ran on him, ran with him with some little rub routes and just trying to get him the ball on shallow routes in space. And that's the part that I know our players want to improve on. We want to improve on as coaches is at the catch tackle point. When they get some short completions like that, we got to be better with our tackling and being tighter to those routes. And we were, in the first half, we handled some of those well. They didn't have much success outside the numbers with the routes outside the numbers early or even throughout the game. The big explosive play, he was lined up in the slot there and ran a double move in a coverage that we need to be better in with our technique and our fundamentals.
Next question, Kevin Fishbane.
Hey, Sean, looking ahead to Monday night with Justin Jefferson, what are some of the things that stand out to you and some of the things that your defensive backs need to know about him?
Yeah, he's another dynamic receiver. He's playing at a really high level, right up there in the top 1, 2, 3, 4 in this league. He's being really productive. He gets a lot of production. He's really strong with his hands, and he runs really good routes. And he can create separation at the top of his routes with his stems. And I think he does a good job of that. They do a good job of moving around a little bit, but really a lot of his production comes on these runaway routes, the over routes, the deep overs and the deep dig windows. And then when he gets a single on the outside, they're not afraid to take the one-on-one fade ball with him, which he's shown that he can go up and go get. And Kirk has put the ball in good spots for him.
Next question, Pat Finley.
Sean, the previous two coordinators we talked to all sounded a little stir crazy. Are you in that boat? And
yeah.
What are you doing to try and alleviate any of that?
No, I mean, obviously you're just stuck in the room and trying to isolate yourself. But I try to get outside and take a little break on my own outside and just walk around a little bit for a few minutes. It's cold though, so that doesn't help much. But I mean that's pretty much it. And quite frankly, I mean, especially the front end of the week, Mondays and Tuesdays, I mean, it's the same. I'm just stuck in my office game planning and watching tape all day anyways. So majority of the day is the same. It's just the practice part that you miss of being out in the field.
Did you test positive on Monday?
That was the last test I had.
Yeah. Were you, knowing what had been going on in the world, were you surprised that this wave is hit the NFL at all?
I'm not sure. I mean, I guess a little bit.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit. And I think we've done a good job individually and collectively as a team here to help ourselves as much as we can. And I guess inevitably, like you're saying, what's going on in the world, there were going to be some filters in the NFL as well. And so, that's part of the world we're living in.
Next question, Hub Arkush.
Hey, Sean, I hope you're feeling better and all clear soon. There's two players I'd like to ask you about if I can. A lot of your history, obviously, in the secondary. First, with Kendall, what do you do confidence-wise with a guy like that who's playing well? He kind of drops off. And I'm wondering, is there any thought that maybe his future is as much or more in the slot as it is on the boundary? And then the other guy is Thomas Graham. Who we haven't seen a lot of, body type wise, kind of similar to Houston Carson. And I'm wondering if he's a safety or a corner, and if we're going to see you working on that over the next 4 weeks too.
Yeah. So Kindle's a good question. In terms of confidence, it's just a matter of us making sure that he knows that we kind of believe in him, giving him some opportunities, and we've done that the last few weeks where he's rotated in there for us at corner. And then part of that is just him building his own confidence and having success. At the top of some routes and things like that, which he's shown, like you said, over time, a little bit of that. And so we got to continue to build off of that with him. And he's in a good headspace where we can do that. In terms of Thomas Graham, he continues to develop for us in a good, positive way. And, based on obviously numbers and depth as we go, you may get a chance to see him here in these next few weeks. But we're just gonna have to make those decisions as we go. And his body type is a little bit similar to DHC's, I would say. He's a little bit lighter than DHC's. He kind of carries the weight a little bit differently. And he's obviously got much more experience as a corner in college than DHC did. And so we're he's doing a good job of learning the defense. And really, it's been a little bit of a transition. And I'm talking about through training camp and everything for him to get acclimated back to football because he hadn't played for a while up until training camp. And so he's done a good job here over the course of year, learning the defense, getting back into the modes of operating and seeing what we need him to see and being where we need him to be.
Any thoughts about looking more at Vildor inside, or are you comfortable he belongs on the boundary?
No, we've done that. And I think the one thing that we always try to preach on, which you've seen to kind of help us this year, is we try to teach all our guys all the positions. Mm-hmm. And that's why you've seen probably 5 or 6 different nickels in the game, 2 to 3 different dimes, a few different safeties, and a few different corners. So for us, we're big, as you guys kind of know from me, is in terms of technique and fundamentals and trying to emphasize that with guys. And so for him to be able to transition into that spot, he's gotten some reps there. We would look into increasing those over time just so he gets more comfortable. But, for him, we wanted to get him comfortable where he's first most comfortable, where his natural instincts are. And then we could teach him the nickel spot.
Thanks, Sean. Feel better.
Yep. Thank you.
Next question, Adam Hogue.
Hey, Sean, when you have a player like Jalen Johnson who plays pretty well Sunday night, but then gets up at the podium after the game and talks about what he can do better as a player to take his game to the next level by being able to play in the slot so that when receivers like Devontae move in there, he can cover them and stay with them all over the field. I mean, what does that tell you about him as a player, and what does he need to do to be able to do that going forward in his career?
Yeah, obviously as a player, it kind of makes you a little bit proud of a guy that kind of embraces that hard hat mentality that I've always talked about. And he's a guy that is embracing that, and he's taken on that challenge for us as a second-year player, and that's a tremendous credit to him. And in terms of being able to do those roles, obviously it starts with the technique and fundamentals and the knowledge of the defense, and he's growing in that, and he knows the roles there. But there's differences in the techniques and differences of how you play that, which foot's up, which foot's out, where your leverages are, where your help is, the pass pickups. So there's a lot more detail that goes into that, and I think he knows that and he appreciates that. And he's done some of it for us this year at varying levels. And so we're going to continue to develop him just like we are everybody else. We're going to continue to develop him so we can feel confident in the defenses that you're doing that. And, this is the first year, as you guys know, probably in almost a decade that the Bears have matched on defense at corner. And so we've got that nice luxury to be able to do that with him. And so that there's a process to doing that. And one thing we don't want to do, and I've always said this, is compromise the defense for any individual, whether it's an opponent or one of our individuals. And so we'll make sure that he can play within the defense and learn our defense, and he's doing it, but we got to make sure he's comfortable because, again, the same thing there. Devontae was aligned outside a lot. And so he's going to be in those positions. And then sometimes when they know you're taking one guy away, there's other spots that you got to be able to cover up as well. And so, for a guy like him that wants that hard hat all the time, we got to try to make sure that he's able to be in the best position so he can go execute.
And just a quick follow-up, when you got to the point where you had to put Eddie in the slot just because of the lack of bodies, was that is it thinking there just we got to take our most experienced guy because he knows the defense and ride it out?
Yeah, that's part of it. And then he's also gotten reps there. He played that in the playoff game last year. He's played it earlier this year versus the Raiders. We've had some success there with some matchup issues. And so, he's obviously knows the defense, has some veteran savviness to be able to play that slot position. And as you guys know, because you guys have talked about it over time and it's real, the nickel position is a really important position for us. in our defense and the way we play that position. So Eddie brought a nice presence in there for us. And then, he did a good job on a few of those plays when he was in there.
Next question, Brad Biggs.
Hey, Sean, I'm not sure if you're aware of Jalen's comments he made on a podcast earlier this week, but he suggested that a portion of the locker room had basically started to quit. From your vantage point, have you seen any indication of that?
Yeah, no, I'm not aware of the podcast, but no, I have not. I have not. I think you saw it in that game. Our guys are competitors, and I think they're gonna kind of fight and claw for everything that they've got. And it's our jobs as coaches to make sure they're in the best positions and they know their techniques and fundamentals to be able to go execute. And you've seen that throughout the course of this year, regardless of, at least on defense, who we played on defense. And we played a good number of people, and that's part of this league where you got to be able to do that. It's the next man up mentality, and we're going to continue to do that as we move forward. And the expectation is always going to be the expectation. The standard is going to be the standard that we need to play high level of defense, and we need to be able to execute for 60+ minutes.
Next question, Mark Potash.
Hey, Sean, with regard to Johnson versus Davante Adams, do the Vikings have the same capability with Jefferson to move them around? Is that an easier matchup for a number one guy, like since Jalen has kind of established himself as a shutdown kind of guy?
So I didn't understand the second part. Is it an easier matchup for?
Yeah. Do the Vikings have the same capability to kind of move Jefferson to avoid Jalen, like the Packers did, or is that an easier matchup, do you think, for a guy who's established himself as kind of a number one guy against the other team's best receiver?
Yeah, for sure. And it's an interesting take sometimes that people take, because it's not just Davante moved into the slot versus us the first game. And so offenses in this league right now are moving all their guys around to create favorable matchups, whether it's a coverage matchup or just a route matchup. They want a certain slot receiver to run a certain route. When you got guys with the skill sets of Davante Adams or Justin Jefferson that can do multiple things and are versatile, they're going to continue to do that. And we've seen it not just with those two guys, really with a bunch of the receivers that we've seen this year where they move people around. So I think I would expect the Vikings to continue to do that. They've done it all year, just like the Packers did. Davante just doesn't line up as the X receiver on one side of the field. He's moved around all over the place. And so I would expect these guys to do the same thing with Justin.
So is the solution developing Jalen to a better slot corner, or is it just getting a better nickel corner? Well,
there's a lot of solutions, and you can pick and choose either one, but the solution is really what's best for all 11 of us. Because if you move one guy somewhere, that means you're moving another guy somewhere else. So it's not as easy as sometimes, I know you guys want to make it out to be as cut and dry as it is, but there's other layers to it that it's our jobs as coaches to make sure all 11 can function as a unit together. And, a solution in that comment that you just made there is you can just play cover 1-0 all day and then just match up everybody man to man and do that. But that's not, I don't think that's the best way to play some of these guys. And you see it on tape with Davante and Justin, when they're up in those situations. We're going to play some of those defenses, but when they're up in those situations, they win more times than they don't.
All right, two more. Dan Reeder.
Two quick ones, Sean. First on the COVID front, what's the rhythm of your testing? When do you test next, and how do you test when you're isolated?
Oh, I've been testing every day. That's been the protocol. I just follow the protocol that obviously the NFL and our organization's been giving us. So I've been testing every day, and you kind of go through that. And then there's some rules, which I'm not totally in all the details of it, but
yeah,
they get all the results. I get all the results, and pretty much there's numbers and benchmarks and negative tests and all that stuff. And there's a combination of a lot of different things that can allow me to test back in, which I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to test back in by Monday.
And then on the Vikings front, a week and a half ago, Dalvin Cook was supposed to be out for 3-4 weeks with a dislocated shoulder, torn labrum, and then he goes for 200 plus and 2 scores. I'm wondering what you saw in that game against Pittsburgh that caught your eye.
Oh, I mean, it's the same thing you see on the other 12 games with Dalvin, and it's quite frankly the same thing we've seen his whole career. He's a special back, and I think that's been cleared, in my opinion. I've been against him. I forget now. What is this? 4 years now that he's in the league. His whole career, he's always been a special back. He's really dynamic. He does an unbelievable job of pressing the line of scrimmage and making cuts. He threatens all levels of the defense from a lateral perspective, a horizontal perspective, and a vertical perspective, much differently than many backs in this league. And we played a lot of good backs this year. But he's got the quickness and the speed to beat you around the edge, and he's dynamic enough to take one cut and get you down the middle, which you saw both of those, to your question, versus Pittsburgh, and really versus most teams this league this year.
I recorded my data using a bar graph. It shows how many bike lanes.
All right, last question, Alex Shapiro.
Hey, Sean, got one more question for you about the Vikings offense. Kirk Cousins has ranked near the top of the league in a lot of statistical categories like passing yards, completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio. Just wondering what you've seen that's made him so successful this season.
The biggest thing I think is his confidence that he's playing with, and his ability to recognize the coverage and get the ball off pretty quickly. You know, at the top of his drop, he's being much more decisive, in my opinion, than he's ever been, and it's showing in his results.